Welcome to another Always Reforming podcast. This is Bobby Grow. In this podcast, I want to talk about my alma mater. It's actually my double alma mater at Multnomah, what became known as Multnomah University. When I attended, it was Multnomah Bible College and Multnomah Biblical Seminary. But they went to the university model, like many schools have done since I graduated. And I graduated in 2003 for my master's degree from the seminary at Multnomah. But so on this podcast, I want to talk about what has happened to Multnomah, and it's sad, but it was inevitable. As many of us could see, those of us who were paying attention over the last probably at least decade. I mean, I kept in touch with faculty and others at Multnomah since I graduated, and people who had inside knowledge or whatever as well. But you didn't even need that to see the trajectory that Multnomah had taken. And so that's what has led to where they're at now. So that's what I want to talk about in the rest of this podcast. And I'm going to address something that I find disgusting at this point, and it's all being done in the name of Christ, and when it's really just a business transaction and a PR, public relations stunt and strategy. And so that's kind of what that is what I'm going to talk about here today. It's going to be kind of like just an expose, I guess, of what's happening. So let's just get into that now. So Multnomah went out of business. They could no longer financially sustain themselves. I wrote a whole blog post that was received by lots of people, former alumni of Multnomah and others, who weren't paying attention. And I wrote this back, I think, in December. I think that's when it was. Or November of 2023, when Multnomah announced that they were merging with another Christian university known as Jessup University, located in Rockland, California, which is just outside of, I think it's just east of Sacramento, Roseville area, California. But that they are going to be merging with this university. And so from the very inception, or the very beginning of this whole process of them becoming non-existent as an entity, as an independent entity, and as an entity at all, as Multnomah at all, they have been telling people that they've joined in. If you go to their website, even now at multnomah.edu, they've been telling people at large, alumni especially, that this is just a transformative partnership with Jessup University to continue the legacy of Multnomah Bible College. Multnomah originally was called Multnomah School of the Bible, which was founded in the 30s by Dr. John Mitchell, in partnership really with faculty and others from Dallas Theological Seminary. But they have been attempting at what I call like rhetorical subterfuge in regard to them collapsing as an institution. And as I highlighted in my article from my blog on what has happened to Multnomah, what had happened to them, was essentially they went woke. That's the bottom line on all of this. That's why, and they shunned their alumni, because all of their alumni, like myself and many, many others older than me and younger than me too, people who graduated after me, they didn't even look to us for their support, really. They didn't really care what we thought about the direction of the school itself. So the board is at fault for that very immature leadership there. very short-sighted leadership there. And so, though, what happened is that they adopted, of course, and this gets into accreditation type stuff as well. I've looked further into this. For a long time, I thought accreditation, state accreditation, was harmless. You know, when I went to Multnomah, they became fully accredited. They are fully accredited. They were when I started, actually, but they received finally regional accreditation when I was there in undergrad, and then they've had the top-notch ATS, Association of Theological Schools accreditation, all recognized by the Department of Education. They've had that accreditation for the seminary for decades, for years. But I always thought, okay, yeah, well, it's good to have that. You know, it's kind of a regulative type thing. It ensures certain standards and things like that. Like, that's the intent of accreditation. But of course, in the 21st century, accreditation has become something completely other than that. It has become just a Trojan horse for introducing secular, humanistic, pagan ideation into the standards for what a school must meet in order to become accredited by a Department of Education, U.S. Department of Education accrediting or recognized accrediting body. And so that definitely has played a big part on where Multnomah went, because in order to retain that accreditation, that type of accreditation, which allows them then to receive federally funded student loans, so FAFSA, which I took out 2 years ago, that type of accreditation allows them to receive those kinds of funds and allows their students to apply for those kinds of funds, which allows the school theoretically to stay in existence, pay their faculty and all their other costs. So that's where Multnomah was, along with so many other evangelical institutions of higher education these days. And so the standard, though, nowadays, and you can go research this, I did, it's not hard. You can just Google it, it's simple, actually. The standard today to be part of the accreditation process, to be accredited, is to affirm, and not just affirm, but to actively implement diversity, equity, and inclusion ideology, which is really just like neo-Marxist critical theory, identitarianism, so-called groupthink. But essentially, it's the Trojan horse for the LGBTQ plus agenda, for critical race theory, for intersectionality, for all of those types of things that we see being played out now. And as I make this on Ivy League campuses and others, of course, in regard to the protests, for example, at Columbia University in New York, or Yale University, or many others, they're attempting to do this at. Now, that's all a result of adopting this ideology, this postmodern mindset, this critical theoretical way of thinking about things, about people as constructs, as race, sexuality, and everything is just a human construct, and therefore is shapeable, shiftable, shape-shifting type of reality, where there's no objective standards, there's no concrete standard or absolutes in regard to sexuality, in regard to race, or in regard to who the oppressed and oppressors are. That gets us into the kind of Marxist, even like the classist type thinking. But except that instead of thinking of it monetarily, it thinks of it through terms that we associate now with identity. That's the big thing, like our pronouns, all of that kind of stuff. So with that's the background. That's an expectation that the accrediting bodies must require in order for schools to attain full accreditation. by accrediting bodies recognized by the U.S. Department of Education. And so Multnomah, desirous of continuing to have that type of recognition for money, completely bought into that. And so you could see them then, a few years ago, pushing BLM, which is clearly a Marxist. Its founders even openly say that they're Marxist trained, but they're also animists and occultists. But they push this kind of gender ideology, all of that. They just push that whole thing, DEI. So Multnomah had to hire a DEI administrative officer, and they did that with a lady named Dr. Jessica Taylor, who's now the president of Multnomah campus of Jessup University. And that's what I'm going to get to here, the whole idea of Multnomah campus of Jessup University. But they hired her, they implemented, but it wasn't just her, it was the whole mindset of the administrative body and board bought into that. And so they implemented all these measures that, recognizing intersectionality, recognizing they became soft on sexuality issues, things like that, critical race theory, liberation theology, Marxist theology, neo-Marxist theology or ideology. All of those things became present and prevalent on the campus of Multnomah University. And ultimately that led to their demise. They kept shedding the need for Bible and theology credits. Like when I attended, when you were in the undergrad, you automatically were a double major in Bible and theology. You had to have essentially a double major in Bible and theology, and then you could do another major or minor on top of that. Well, they completely got rid of that, and it was just a bare minimum Bible and theology requirements. And eventually they got to the point where they were no longer requiring students to sign a statement of faith to attend a so-called Christian university, which historically was definitely a Christian evangelical university or Bible college and seminary. And so really that's what has led, in a nutshell, to Multnomah University's demise. They shunned their alumni. They didn't care because they knew who their alumni really were demographically. Historically, were people like me who are conservative sociopolitically and who wouldn't be on board with the direction Multnomah took in order to sustain their accreditation, their state accreditation. And so in the end, they lost a lot of their feeder churches, like pastors who would recommend that their people send their kids to Multnomah to receive a solid biblical theological education and foundation that way. They lost all of that. That's money lost for them, lots of it. Like that was their core base before. And so the whole student body changed. It wasn't oriented by that base or desire. It was just essentially became like a liberal arts school that reflected the culture within which it was situated, which is in Portland, Oregon. So just imagine what that looks like. If you know anything about Portland, Oregon these days, or any other progressive city in the United States of America today. So that's where Multnomah went, but they lost that kind of money, really, ultimately. They lost that whole push of students that were coming from all these evangelical conservative churches from all across the country, particularly the West Coast, like where I came from. I came from Southern California to attend Multnomah here in Portland, Oregon. So anyway, that happened, and now, to cut to the chase, they've collapsed, like I said, and they've attempted to make it sound like they haven't, but they have. They no longer exist. This school called Jessup University which is a lot like Multnomah in its past and its history, although its background is tied into, like, as far as theology goes, like more a Pentecostal. But they're just now a liberal arts Christian, university, just like Multnomah was attempting to become, and in the model of something like a Wheaton College or Biola University, the bigger ones. But Multnomah didn't have the kind of fat that those schools have. And so their demise came sooner than these other schools will. Jessup has money right now still. And so they essentially, though, what happened is that they acquired Multnomah. Like, they just took it. They didn't have to pay for it or anything. I mean, they're paying, of course, now for promotional things, but that's, relatively speaking, that's a small number compared to what they just acquired as far as property and assets and things like that go. So they acquired Multnomah's assets and debts, but they acquired everything. They acquired the campus, all the buildings, the facilities, the infrastructure of the school, everything. They got it all for nothing. And so it's like a win-win for them that way. And now what they're attempting to do is make it sound like, as they're in a transition process. This is the last semester where students will graduate as students of Multnomah University, even though, but I think they can actually choose to graduate as Jessup University too at this point. But this will be the last semester where that is possible. Going forward, starting fall semester 2024, it will just be straight up Jessup University. Multnomah University, like I said, no longer exists, and yet they're trying to sell it, especially to us alumni, as if, oh no, the legacy of Multnomah continues. We're just going to be called something else now. We're called, and so they sent out, and the reason I'm doing this little podcast right now is because they just sent out their first promotional thing as, with a new letterhead for the first time that I've seen. And you can see what they're doing. It says, and it's like this nice color, like letter type thing, form letter, signed by Jessica Taylor and John Jackson, Dr. John Jackson, who is the president of Jessup University. But they have the same logo as we always had, or for years that they've had at Multnomah. So they're using that still. They're not using Jessup Universities yet. And I'm not on this letterhead. And then you have, it says Multnomah and University, but in the middle, in between the lines, between Multnomah University, in smaller print, it has Campus of Jessup. So if you read it straight, it goes Multnomah Campus of Jessup University, which is what it is. But they're attempting to, that subterfuge, they're attempting still to be confusing to people. They're not even allowing its alumni to kind of mourn the loss of Multnomah in a real way, because they're attempting to make it seem as if Multnomah's spirit continues on, but now we're just Jessup University, but we're still called Multnomah University, just the campus, Multnomah campus of Jessup University. So they're intentionally keeping things convoluted and muddy. And what they sent, the first correspondence I received from them as an alumnus of Multnomah, they sent cards out here explaining things, but it's a donor. It's to give them money. And so what's frustrating to me, I mean, I've been paying attention, like I said, on these things, but a lot of people haven't. And so they have no idea what Multnomah became. They just think, oh, it's still the Multnomah of old. They just couldn't financially sustain themselves, so this is what's happened. But they're still carrying on, and Jessup University is just helping them. But that's not true. It's not that Jessup isn't just helping Multnomah. Multnomah is Jessup University. It's a completely different university. But they're attempting to fleece its alumni, Multnomah's alumni, as if they still are just Multnomah and carrying on the legacy of Multnomah University. And their first correspondence with the alumni is to send out these fundraising cards and donation commitments. That's disgusting, actually. So if you're not like me, and you're not like some others, which I think is kind of a smaller number, honestly, of people who've paid attention to what has gone on with Multnomah here, and especially in these last 6 months or so, and then beyond that, what Multnomah became, which has led to its demise, as far as what I was already referring to before, that it went woke. That's the easiest way to say it. If you haven't been paying attention to all of that, you're an older alumnus of Multnomah. You just remember the good old days, and that's what they're playing on. They're playing on people's emotions right now, and they're engaging in, it is subterfuge. That's the best word for what they're doing. It's linguistic is what I called it in my post. Linguistic subterfuge. They're attempting to fleece old people. It's a scam is what it is. It's a scam. They're scamming old people, old Multnomah alumni, money in the name of Jesus. And they leave themselves with some plausible deniability because of the way that they word things. I was going to read the whole little thing, but I'm not going to now. But it's just absurd, and it's terrible, and it's disgusting, and they stand before the Lord on this. It's a serious thing. It's just like my great-grandpa, and like so many of our other, so many of us probably can attest to certain experiences like this with our elderly family members who have been scammed out of money by organizations, uncouth organizations, who that's their intent, is to scam old people and play on their emotions and make something sound a certain way when it's not that way at all in reality. That's exactly what they're doing here. And it's all about public relations and funding this Jessup University, not Multnomah. Multnomah Bible College, Seminary, University is situated in Multnomah County in Oregon, which is in Portland. But they're in Multnomah County. And so that's what this is now. And so that's why they can brand it that way. It has so they're equivocating. They're using Multnomah, and that's the subterfuge part. They're using the word Multnomah in a scam type way. And they don't feel like they're lying because, honestly, it still is in Multnomah. It really is the Multnomah campus of Jessup University. But it's not Multnomah Bible College. It's not Multnomah School of the Bible. It's not Multnomah Biblical Seminary. It's not even Multnomah University. It's Jessup University. And so they're presenting things in a very convoluted way in order, and this is the bottom line, which I knew all along. You could see what they were doing. That was about money and attempting to fund Multnomah campus of Jessup University in the name of the old Multnomah School of the Bible, ultimately is what it really is. And that's disgusting. It's sick. And these leaders, they stand before the Lord. It's clear what they're doing. Anybody who has a brain, who has any, just a modicum of discernment, or even not, you just look into it a little bit, and you think about what's happening here, and it's obvious what they're doing. It's like, it should be hit you in the face the second you see this letter from them. So I hope that's what does happen to people. I hope that they aren't fooled by this. I hope they don't give a red cent to Jessup University because of the way that they are doing this. They're not being honest, and that's the bottom line. They're not being honest, and they're attempting to dupe people and using the name of Christ to do it, using the advancement of the kingdom That's what they say. I'll read the end of the letter here. It says, it's signed Dr. Jessica Taylor, Multnomah campus president, and Dr. John Jackson, Jessup University president. And here's the end. As the Multnomah campus of Jessup University steps into this new season, the commitment to our mission remains resolute. The partnership represents a merger of mission, that's in quotes, and propels the legacies of both Multnomah and Jessup forward while retaining their foundational principles of spiritual formation and academic rigor. As presidents to both of these great universities, we believe that by working together and aligning our missions, we will transform lives for the glory of God. We're eager to witness the continued favor of God as we faithfully work hand in hand to equip the next generation of transformational leaders with the financial support they need to pursue a degree in Christ-centered higher education. Would you prayerfully consider partnering with us as we merge missions? Your financial support will attract current and future students to Multnomah and strengthen the ongoing mission in the Pacific Northwest, compelled by the love of Christ and in partnership with the church. Dr. Jessica Taylor, Dr. John Jackson. That is so slithery right there. I mean, it sounds great, right? I mean, that's good public relations, but it's so deceptive. Jessica Taylor she's been put on as the interim president of the Multnomah campus of Jessup University. She is an employee of Jessup University, not Multnomah University. There is no merger of missions that has taken place. It is the dissolution of Multnomah in total. It no longer exists as an entity, and is now Jessup University. Dr. Jessica Taylor is an employee of Jessup University. All the faculty and staff and administration at Multnomah campus of Jessup University are employees of Jessup University. There is no merger. Multnomah does not exist anymore. So if you come across this, which you probably won't, but if you do, and you're a former alumnus of Multnomah, don't be deceived by what they're doing. Now, on the other hand, if you think this is all good and great, and that as they end their little letter here, that it's a process of strengthening the ongoing mission in the Pacific Northwest of providing higher education for students in a Christ-centered, Christ-oriented way. If you think that's at bottom is good, then yeah, you might want to support that. But honestly, I will tell you this: Jessup University is no different than Multnomah University and what Multnomah University became. As far as what I just talked about, the diversity, equity, and inclusion, they have that too. And so, and all of that is present. And if you don't know about that, just Google it. Google what the entailments of DEI, that's the acronym, DEI entails, what it involves. Let's read about it. And then you'll understand what happened to Multnomah, and you'll understand who Jessup University is as well. So if you're okay with supporting that kind of ideology, then maybe you will want to support them. But just at least know what you're getting involved with, and at least know that it is not Multnomah University. It is the Multnomah campus of Jessup University, and they're using that in a equivocal way so that Multnomah, they are Multnomah County. It's not Multnomah like the university or the Bible college or the seminary or the school of the Bible, as they've been called before. They're not an independent university. They haven't merged with a university. They've dissolved. And Jessup University is the university that is talking to you now through this letter and through other forms of correspondences. And they did also, this is disgusting as well. A beloved former professor at Multnomah, he was there when I was there, Professor David Needham, He just went to be with the Lord, and the school did a memorial service for him, which is good, in principle. But they actually they used his memorial service to like tie it into their whole subterfuge and this idea of this legacy that's continuing of Multnomah through Jessup University. So they tied it into that. They also did a book launch at this memorial service where essentially it's a book supposedly co-written by Jessica Taylor and John Jackson. And it sounds like it's just an expanded form of this form letter, as far as the gist of what they're attempting to do and communicate. So they used his death, David Needham's death, as a promotion for this book, for this takeover of Multnomah by Jessup University. I mean, it is. I can't believe it. Honestly, it's hard to believe that these people can be that dirty, and it's dirty, and the Lord sees it. So, I just wanted to do this podcast. I wanted to highlight these things in this format, and I was prompted to do so by this letter that many of us, all former alumnus who they have addresses for, have received in an attempt to deceive people into thinking that Multnomah continues on as a school. They don't. They're Jessup University, and Jessup University is the same type of school that Multnomah University became in their adoption of DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion ideology. And you'll just have to look that up if you don't know what that is. I explained it a little bit at the beginning of this podcast, and I kind of got into its themes, a little bit into its background, but you can just Google it and you'll see, and it's not good. So anyway, hopefully this is informative for some people, and I hope that it gets some play out there. I'll share it on my social media platforms, and hopefully others can give it a listen and just understand what has happened better and be more informed about what's going on and what kind of ugliness is present in all of this. It's not the Spirit of the Lord. I can easily say that the Spirit of the Lord is not in this, in the way that they're handling this, the way that they're doing this, the way that they're deceiving people, especially old people. That's what infuriates me and makes me really upset, that they would do that. Just all to make money. And it's disgusting. So I leave you with that. All right. Till next time. This is Bobby Grow.